the same thing is what happened to Miss Ann back in the 90s.
You discovered Little Uzi? Now that I didn't know.
You didn't know that?
Nah.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Because I always wondered about Little Uzi because he don't look or sound like nothing coming out of Philadelphia.
Well, why didn't you sign him to yourself?
Y'all want to talk?
Yes.
Yes.
We want to hear what happened.
So now let's fast forward. So now the group is signed, the machine is moving, and the hits start coming in. No, 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 back in 1997. Bills, Bills, Bills in 1999. The Writings on the Wall album ended up going 8 times platinum in the United States alone. And from the outside, it looked like the 4 girls were on top of the world together. But behind the scenes, something was definitely fracturing. Beyonce was singing lead on everything. She was front and center in every interview. She was being positioned in a way that made it very clear who this group was being built around. Latavia Robeson and LaToya Luckett, along with their families, started asking questions. Latavia later said in interviews that things felt very unfair. She said Matthew used to say things like, "Y'all should be glad I'm giving you money." She also said that Beyonce and Kelly had cars while she was not getting the same treatment. Their paychecks were different, the treatment was different, and she said the issue was always management, never with the girls.
That's why
So
I'm saying,
Latavia and
unfortunately, I just think that's entertainment.
LaToya did what any rational person would do in that situation. In late 1999, they had their lawyers send Matthew Knowles a letter expressing their grievances and asking for an addition of a second manager to work alongside him. Not to replace him, they wanted to add a third-party voice that could represent everyone's interests fairly. Because when you're the manager and also one of the members' fathers, being neutral in these type of situations is not always guaranteed. So it wasn't crazy for them to start feeling away. This wasn't them being difficult. It wasn't them trying to be divisive. It was them trying to protect themselves as young women in an industry that's not going to protect them. Latavia said it clearly. We were happy for Matthew to stay on as manager, but we wanted another manager to work with him. That's it. Now think about this. A few years before that, Miss Ann was the one running the group, and Matthew basically bogarted his way into being her co-manager. And then once she passed away, it was obviously unfair for the girls. So now they're asking Matthew, well, hey, you were a co-manager with Miss Ann. Can we bring another manager into the group so that way it's more fair for us as well? And Matthew says no. So it's very interesting how the same thing he demanded for Miss Ann, once he got into that position of manager,
He want there
refused
to
to share
be
that
a lead.
position. So long story short, Matthew did not take kindly to being challenged. Before Latavia and LaToya even had a chance to sit down and talk to Beyonce and Kelly directly, which is one thing that Latavia has always stated that she regretted not doing first, they were replaced. The video for Say My Name dropped in February of 2000, and Latavia and LaToya were not in it. Michelle Williams and Farrah Franklin were. And how did Latavia and LaToya find out that they were no longer in the group that they helped build? They found out like we all found out in the early 2000s. Child, I was at home minding my business, honey.
That was spooky.
Say My Name
That
comes
was
on,
spooky
it's
to me.
premiere on MTV, and we're watching the video, and it's like, hold on, who? Who are these other people? Where are the other girls that were on the album cover? So we were confused as teenagers, not knowing what happened. So to find out that that's how they found out as well is just heartbreaking. Latavia said in her memoir, "We saw the Say My Name video on TV. That's how I found out I was no longer in the group. I never left Destiny's Child. Who would leave Destiny's Child? That's crazy. I was dismissed from the group." So now, mind you, these two girls grew up with Beyonce and Kelly. LaToya literally met Beyonce in grade school because Beyonce was sitting in her assigned seat. They built this together from childhood. They prayed together for the group to succeed. They went on tour
Why would
together.
she be sitting in
They
her
worked
assigned
22
seat?
hours a day through the summer. They missed prom. They missed dances. They put everything into building Destiny's Child. They won Grammys together just for two of them to find out in front of the world by turning on the television that two strangers were standing in their spot. No phone call, no
feel
meeting, no
violated.
conversation. Just the Say My Name video on MTV with a brand new lineup and
So
the
I didn't
chapter
like Say My
basically
Name.
telling them goodbye, your services are no longer needed.
What was that like, though, when you heard that they'd shot a video for a song you sang on without you?
It's like, oh my God, you was. I was like, hold on. I was like, it's not true. Then we got another call and we heard it again. Then the next thing I'm looking at BET.
It didn't hit me until Jumpin' Jumpin' came out. Then I started to like it. Like a strange person. Something wrong with me.
premiere of Destiny's Child's new video, Say My Name.
They were very, very aware of everything before it was done.
Okay.
They have been comments on the radio that I
I don't
can't
know
get
if that's
into
a
it
lie or
legally, but there have been comments on the radio stating that they knew exactly what was going on. I called
From
them
the radio.
personally and said that I would be a bigger woman and call them and confront them.
LaToya talked about this moment on the Terrell Show, and she handled it with humor because that's who she is. But you could still, tell that there's some pain underneath there. She even started singing Drew Hill's In My Bed about somebody sleeping in her bed and taking her place.
When I was sitting at home, listening to it on the radio.
And that was what I was a fan of. In My Bed, Drew Hill, and all this drama was going on.
So it goes around that time, things change. But I do remember saying, you know what, regardless of what's going on, that's a pretty good dang on song.
Absolutely.
That's a good song. I was probably more mad that I couldn't be a part of that one. That was a good song. As I said at the house, I said, Self, this is a good song.
How could it not hurt? I mean, you were a part of the album, and then the story goes,
I didn't like
you
this
wake
song.
up one day.
Somebody's sleeping in my bed.
I'm gonna have to go.
Baby, yeah. Somebody's taking my place, yeah. Hey man, look. But that's my dog.
Of course.
Shout out to Michelle Williams.
She gave Michelle Williams a shout out. She also joked that it hurt to see the new lineup in Dior because when they were coming up as Destiny's Child, they really didn't have no money like that. On the Tia and Tiny show, she talked about how much it did hurt her. And what she said on the show was that basically they were friends. She went to school with all of these girls. And to not have her friends anymore really broke her heart.
Management made a decision. There was nothing that Latavia and I could do about it. Did it hurt? Absolutely, because we were friends. I went to school with these girls.
And for Latavia, she's been even more open about the aftermath. She has spoken publicly about falling into depression, turning to alcohol, and going through a genuinely dark period after being removed from the girls group. She said, my issue was always with management. It was never with the girls.
You were going through a really rough time. You didn't know what to pray for. What gave you comfort?
Alcohol, drugs, being in my own space, excluding myself from society, self-sabotage. That's where I was. People wonder, like, well, what happened to you for like 20 years? I was underneath my own rock.
And that's actually a very important distinction that a lot of people miss when they tell their story. They ended up suing Matthew Knowles for breach of contract and mismanagement. The case was settled out of court. Latavia confirmed that they still receive royalties because they had writing credits on both albums, and they won 2 Grammy Awards for Say My Name, despite no longer being in the group. But the emotional damage was done. And then Farrah Franklin came in as one of the 2 replacements and was gone in less than 5 months. She claims it was a year, but most people say by the time they came out publicly, it was 5 months before she was replaced.
No, it wasn't just one thing, really. It was like, I was really in the group longer than 5 months. They said I was in the group for 5 months, but really I was in the group for about a year and some change. And there was I've just always been a leader and an individual. I've never been a follower. I've never been a happy to be here type of person because I worked so hard for where I am.
Yeah, don't cry.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
And it was just a lot. Like, I wanted to be happy, and this is like everything I've ever dreamed for, and I wasn't happy.
Yes. Why? Were the sisters...
She came to sit for me when I was in the hospital. When I was doing chemo. True story. And yeah,